Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 3 Point Play podcast, home of everything sports, fantasy betting, and reality. I'm your host, Lewis Stanridge, and not joining me on the pod today is my buddy Kyle Verska. He unfortunately was unable to make it this one. Full disclosure, we had recorded this, had some technical difficulties after the first time around, and he was unable to reschedule. So here I am in the interest of getting this out to everybody before the Thursday night game, and of course, more importantly, the Sunday afternoon games leading into Monday night. So last week I went 9-7, only 1-2 on my locks, unfortunately, but I did. I can't remember what my eliminator was, but I think I did have the Packers in one, and unfortunately that busted me already. So I may not be the best for eliminators, but I'm looking at a very exciting week two. So we're going to go ahead and jump in right now. Thursday night, we kick off with the Giants at Washington. This is, of course, courtesy of ESPN's Pigskin Pick'em. These lines may differ. If you can see the Action Network, which I like to use, their website. I have an account on there. Find the data on here very, very useful in being deciding factor on my bets. And you can see ESPN's got 3.5 on here for the Washington professional football team. You can find it anywhere between 3 and 3.5. Currently, looks like the money is about even. The tickets are about even. This is a tough one, and typically it is difficult for these Thursday night games because it's just very, very unpredictable. One of the hardest games in the slate for this week for me to pick. I typically defer to the better quarterback in the matchup, given that it's more or less a pickup game with less practice during the week. And since it's Taylor Heineke and Daniel Jones, I know we've only seen about 2 games out of Heineke, but I like what I've seen a lot more than what I've seen out of several games from Daniel Jones. Plus, I think Barkley is not going to be relied upon in this game very much, at least. So you're getting a backup running back on the road. I'll take Washington. Give me the 3.5. It's going to be tough because this is probably going to be a low-scoring game, but I believe that the Washington professional football team has a superior defense, and they will be at home. So I'll take the points and just hope for the best. On to the Sunday early afternoon games. Kick it off with Cincinnati Bengals 1-0 at the Chicago Bears 0-1. Bears, of course, they're coming off that semi-embarrassing Sunday night game against the LA Rams. The Bengals coming off a fairly impressive overtime win against the Vikings. I say impressive because I think a lot of people, including myself, didn't expect a lot out of the Bengals for this whole season, and having them beat a fairly competitive potential playoff team in the Vikings says something. But I think the value here is going to be on the Bears. I think, of course, coming off that negative viewpoint and reaction that a lot of people are going to have backlash to and think, why would I touch the Bears? This Bengals team can clearly move the ball. I think, especially given the fact that we had underdogs go 12-4 against the spread, 9-7, I believe, outright, that there are going to be some favorites that are actually good values this week, and that may even out to a lot better than what it was 12-4 for the underdog. So considering that, I've already got Washington on the slate. I think the Bears will be good here. I also think Andy Dalton, this is probably going to be his last game if they lose. And so there's a lot more at stake for Andy Dalton and that coaching staff. I understand they probably wouldn't lose that much sleep if they had to start Justin Fields next week. Probably wouldn't be the worst thing. But I think there's a lot more love for the Bengals, the completely opposite feeling for the Bears after just 1 week. And going into the season, I would have had the Bears a superior team. I still think they're slightly better. They're at home. It's only 2.5. I'll take the 2.5. Next game up, the Houston Texans, 1-0, coming off the shellacking of the Jaguars. One of the more impressive Week 1 victories on the road to face the Cleveland Browns, who choked away their lead against the Chiefs, but who amongst us has not lost a double-digit lead against the Chiefs? The Browns minus 12.5 here. I, alongside my compatriot Kyle, typically will take the double-digit underdogs. And even more so, especially if they're home underdogs, that's almost a no-brainer. But here we have Cleveland at home. I think this is a get-right game. I think just because we saw Texans seem like a competent football team in Week 1, give them too much credit, my opinion. I think the Browns very much could run the ball 35 times in this game and just run the clock out, and the Texans just don't have enough possessions to keep this competitive. So I'm going to take the Browns minus the 12.5. I think it's much, much more likely that the Browns are up 35-10, and that defense is exercising some frustration out on the Texans that, they didn't really do as much as they hoped last week. And you'll see that come out this week. So Browns by 12.5. Next game up, we've got the Los Angeles Rams, of course, on the other end of that Bears game with the impressive win. And, of course, a lot of people were hyping them up going into the season. Stafford and that new-look offense. Now you're going into Indianapolis, who looked like ass in Week 1, losing to the Seahawks. Of course, Seahawks, very good team, so it's not too much, but the Colts are a well-coached team. And, Carson Wentz did struggle a little bit. I believe his average depth of target was not very high. It was a lot of running back throws and just short yardage stuff. But I think a lot of that Week 1 loss is more attributed to how good the Seahawks are and less about the Colts. I think alternatively, we got too high on the Rams following that win and not remembering the fact that the Bears were very, very close, an end zone turnover away in the first half from going up 14-13, I believe. So having said all that, I think you can run on the Rams. I would not start Michael Pittman against Jalen Ramsey, but Jonathan Taylor should have a great game. I also, for these games where it seems like there's sneaky value, I like to double check over here and see what kind of value we are getting. And I bet we're going to find, it looks like the money's now back to about even. So for a long time, it was heavy on the Rams. Looks like the sharps probably came in on the Colts, and now that's died out a little bit. Maybe you won't see that on the money line. We'll double check that. Yeah, you see 6% coming in on the Colts, a whopping 94%. So even if it's not the spread, the money line here shouts like this is very much value on the Colts. So I'll take the Colts plus 3.5. Maybe if you want to avoid the Rams in your eliminator, I would recommend that. This could be a sneaky upset, especially generally taking road teams in eliminator is not what I recommend. Next game up, Buffalo Bills, tough loss Week 1 against the Steelers. Now they're on the road to face Miami. Miami are plus 3.5 despite that tough win against the Patriots in Week 1. Another home underdog, and this is a great week to get some value on the home underdogs, which are traditionally just blank home underdog, great value. One of the best bets in the game, home underdog, especially when you get the hook here. Even without this hook, if this game were just to pick 'em, I'd probably take the Dolphins anyways. I think the Dolphins have a really good chance to win. I think going from that typically cooler Buffalo weather down to hot, humid, early September, mid-September Miami weather, it's going to be an adjustment. I think the fact that the Bills are throwing so dominantly, so as part of their offense, the Dolphins will be able to sit in a light box, put 7 defensive backs out there and just sit back there and force the Bills to try and figure that out. And for the Bills' credit, a lot of times they are able to figure that out. I just think The Dolphins already have a very good defense. Play into that defense is not going to make it any better. Potentially low-scoring game. I think all these factors play into the Dolphins at least covering the 3.5, if not an upset. Very, very similar to the Colts game we just talked about. So I am taking the Dolphins in that one. Also would avoid the Bills in the eliminator. Probably looking at an 0-2 start, which, of course, you'll see those narratives on Pardon My Take come Monday morning, Tuesday morning. Next game on the slate, another AFC East showdown. New England Patriots, 0-1 on the road to face New York Jets, also 0-1. Jets here plus 5.5. This is an incredibly tough one because I so much am, generally I would say I'm a contrarian guy, so I will go against the public. So much so, I feel like I'm on the public side, wanting the Patriots in this one. The Jets just lost Mekhi Becton. The offensive line is already kind of terrible. You've got a rookie quarterback in his second game against Bill Belichick, who I don't know his record, but I'm fairly certain it's really impressive against rookie quarterbacks. Really, the only thing I could see here is potentially the Jets' defense keeping the Patriots down, and this is a very low-scoring game. But I don't know. It seems like that Jets secondary is going to get exposed at some point. In terms of money, it looks like for the money line, we are looking at, we don't have the numbers for that, so let's look at the spread. And Patriots, number one in money with 94% coming in on them. 86% of tickets, as you can see right here. Not a good sign typically, and if that holds as it is, I will jump on the Jets because that is a heavy favor, tipping point for Vegas. So if it stays at 94%, I'll be flipping to the Jets. As of right now, I'm on the Patriots. It is a gut punch. It's tough to swallow that, especially with this home underdog of 5.5. It's just, I can't see it right now. And maybe I'll just, do the shark thing and take the Jets with the points and just expect something to happen, but I'm just not seeing it. I think the Jets have tough time getting to 13 points. Patriots, that they could just need to get to 20. I think that's very, very possible, especially because they put up 16 on the Dolphins. Jets defense, not as good. Next game up, the San Francisco 49ers on the road to face the Philadelphia Eagles, both 1-0 teams. Eagles here, fourth straight home underdog, I believe, for counting. Yeah. This is my favorite pick of the week. I'm taking the Eagles. I think they looked incredible in week one. That defense has always been fairly competent because they've got really good guys on the defensive front seven. Looks like they've added a second cornerback, so it's not just Slay on an island. And I understand the Falcons' offensive line sucks, but the Niners almost blew that game to the Lions. And the fact that they let them come back, that secondary, I believe they lost Jason Verrett. So he was the one good cornerback they have. Now they have no depth. That secondary is open to getting exposed. Philadelphia Eagles should be able to throw on that. Alternatively, the Niners, Elijah Mitchell, which everybody's going to be touting, I think he's going to have a really tough time running on this Eagles front seven, which means they have to do something they don't like to do, which is rely on their quarterback, Garoppolo. And I don't think it's going to be as easy as facing the Lions. So I'll take the Eagles here. I like the offense. I like the defense. I think right now in week 2, they might be the better team. So getting the 3.5 is perfect for me. And I know this one of the games early on that there was a lot of money coming in on the Niners. Looks like that's evened out just a bit. So it's up to 34% money on the Eagles. But we'll see if that holds true. Either way, I'm on the Eagles here. Let's see. Las Vegas Raiders plus 5.5 on the road to face facing the Pittsburgh Steelers. Both teams 1-0. We've got the Steelers, of course. I feel like that was a kind of disguised win against the Bills. They didn't put up a lot of offense. They had a punt block for a touchdown. The Raiders, on the other hand, took advantage of some turnovers, timely turnovers by the Ravens. And, of course, we're going to be getting – it's a lot like the Rams win. We're going to get a lot of positive feedback on that winning team. So I think you might be getting a little bit of value on the Steelers here. I do have a little bit of hesitation in the fact that the Raiders were able to move the ball on the Ravens defense. And they, in theory, would be able to do so against the Steelers. The question is, will the Steelers be able to get their offense going, unlike they did in Week 1? And that's a tough one. That's what makes this game so tough to pick. I am going to take the Steelers here, but I'm going to leave it open to changing because if you feel strongly about the Raiders, I recommend just going with your gut. This is not a game I have a strong feel for. Completely opposite from the Eagles. Eagles, 100% confidence. This game, I have very much little confidence in picking. I would not touch it if it were outside of pick'em. And I'll just leave it at that. I think the Steelers are a decent team, and Big Ben's arm has not fallen off yet this far into the season. Next game up, the New Orleans Saints on the road to face Carolina Panthers. Panthers, decent win against the Jets. I don't think anybody really thought too much about it. They took care of business. The Saints, on the other hand, completely shellacking the Packers, probably by far the most impressive win of Week 1. 5 touchdowns by Jameis Winston, only throwing for like 150 yards. They were able to control the line of scrimmage on both sides. And the thing is, Panthers drafting all defensive players last year. Now you've got Brian Burns, all those rookies coming into their second game of the season. How much will they be able to contain the Saints? And look, it's incredibly tough to sit here and look at these. You've got the Colts, the Dolphins, the Jets, the Eagles. Now you've got the Panthers, and of course we'll get to the Jaguars here in a little bit. All these home underdogs, and not just blindly take them. And it seems like that would be very much the straightforward thing to do, especially the divisional ones. That's why I think it's very wide open to take the Jets as a home underdog plus a divisional game. That's why I may end up switching that one, and I may end up I'm going to go with the Panthers here. And I don't feel great about it, but I think odds are you play this week 10 times, and between the Panthers and the Jets and the Dolphins, more often than not, you're going to get at least 2 out of 3 of those to cover. And yeah, I couldn't tell you which 2 on a given week, so I'm just going to probably take all 3 and just hope that I get 2 out of the 3. Because I don't want to sit here and try and pick the right one and then just don't get any of them. So that's why I'm going with the Panthers. I know it doesn't make a lot of analytical sense. There's not too much data to back it up. I do think maybe the Panthers will at least be coming to play. It didn't seem like the Packers really came with a game plan in Week 1. So maybe we'll actually see a competitive team play the Saints and what that looks like. But I would not also fault you for taking the Saints because that was damn impressive in Week 1. Being able to run the ball at will. In theory, the Panthers not notable for a rush defense. So what's going to stop the Saints? I think if anything, the Panthers will just have to keep up. And I think that's possible. The Saints secondary behind Marshawn Lattimore, not that impressive. So maybe a big Terrace Marshall game or Robbie Anderson game, whatever the case may be, that keeps them. You get the hook with the field goal. That's how you maybe end up covering that 3.5. This next game, much like the Patriots-Jets, I'm going to have to take the favorite here just because one team's defense seems like it'll be such a strong factor in this game. And the Jaguars looked so much like trash. The Urban Meyer narrative is in full swing. People asking him if he's going to leave, which may or may not be absurd, whether it's half true or not. The Broncos, very safe, very competent. They're going to run the ball. They're going to throw the ball safely, not turn it over, and they're going to let the defense take care of take care of the game. The Jaguars, on the other hand, don't seem like they're competent in running the ball, at least supporting James Robinson. They're going to have to throw the ball, and it's going to be against the Vic Fangio defense that has probably the best secondary in the league. And I cannot get behind that. I think the best case scenario is that the Jaguars just throw 60 times, and the Broncos are so, let's say, safe about the game that they just don't rack up the score and leave it open for a backdoor cover. So maybe it's a 21 to 15 game. Yeah, but I think the Jaguars are going to turn the ball over a couple of times. Broncos would be in scoring position. Jaguars defense also might be the worst in the league, so that's why I think there's a lot more factors for me talking me into not taking the home underdog, especially when it's not a divisional game. So I'm rolling with the Broncos here, and I feel fairly confident about it. This next game here is a little challenging because the Vikings, of course, very disappointing in week one. Coming into the season, Kyle and I talked about dark horse candidate Mike Zimmer being first coach fired, right? Get off to another bad stretch like they did last year. The team maybe quits on it. Clearly, he doesn't get along with Kirk Cousins, which I don't blame him, given all that stupidity. The Cardinals, on the other hand, they looked as good as anybody in week one. Add in the fact that this is a Patrick Peterson, quote-unquote, revenge game. He's on the Vikings now. He wasn't probably deemed good enough to stay with the Cardinals as they considered. I think that's a bigger advantage for the Cardinals, knowing what his deficiencies are, what his weaknesses are, and how to attack him, more so than what Peterson can give intel-wise on the Cardinals. I could be wrong, but I'm going to take the Cardinals here because I think it's if they the surprising thing is if they turn out to actually have a top 10 by DVOA defense, and the Vikings are going to have to play better than average on offense throughout this game, I think that's a little bit of a wash. Alternatively, I think the Vikings secondary still sucks. We had a lot of people, experts, quote unquote, talking about this Vikings being back to a top 5 unit. By all accounts, I haven't seen it, especially in week one. And I'm not convinced that secondary is much better. So you talk about DeAndre Hopkins or whoever probably being able to take advantage of Patrick Peterson, and then he's the number one corner. So if he's getting torched, not going to get much help behind him. So I could see this as another super upset win, not upset, but blowout win by the Cardinals, and Mike Zimmer is going to be on the super red hot seat. Next game up, another big spread, much like the Browns earlier that we talked about. The Atlanta Falcons on the road to face the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Atlanta Falcons looking like a bottom 5 team. Buccaneers, of course, probably still the favorite after only barely winning week one. But still enough to show you that Tom Brady is the GOAT. I think they had the extra rest here. The two things that I'm looking at are the Buccaneers. They know that they can't get complacent, right? They want to repeat. They know they have things to work on. They very easily could have blown out the Cowboys if they didn't have those 3 meaningful turnovers. The Falcons' defense is probably just as bad as the Cowboys. Additionally, the Falcons' offensive line is trash. The Buccaneers only had 1 sack in week one. I got to think that's going to grow exponentially, and it's going to be on the defensive line's mind, knowing, look, we're supposed to be great. We only got 1 sack in week one. Let's feast. I look at Matt Ryan probably getting sacked here 4 or 5 times. not getting the offense moving, much to, the irony with new head coach in Atlanta. So, and I also think Tampa Bay, Ronald Jones, it's going to be a lot of corrections from the mistakes they made in week 1. And I think Ronald Jones getting benched, very much could see him come in, run for 150 yards. And if they're going to be running the ball a lot more, of course, that shortens the game. And I think you're probably looking at a 24-7 game. If the Buccaneers rack it up even more, wouldn't be shocked. The offense is damn near, unstoppable, especially against a bottom 10 defensive unit. So I'll take the 12.5. I know Kyle had brought up this is a divisional game, double-digit underdog. But the thing is, they're a road underdog. I'm not really convinced. So I think it's much more likely the Buccaneers win by 30 than this game is by 10. So I'm rolling with the favorites here. Next game up, another game I feel very strongly about. Dallas Cowboys on the road to face the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers here -2.5. A lot of people are going to be on the Cowboys because of the extra rest, right? Kyle brought up a good point that this defense really couldn't do anything to stop Tom Brady. The only reason that game was close was 3 turnovers, which I would say some of that was luck. Some of that was being careless by the Buccaneers. And a lot of that was the offense taking care of business. I think the Chargers here, I think they're very much capable of being close to the Tampa Bay's offensive proficiency. And if they can't be stopped, especially now that DeMarcus Lawrence is not playing for the Cowboys, the Chargers should be able to score a touchdown every drive. So that puts the pressure on the Cowboys to score on every drive, which may be possible. I don't know how good this Chargers defense can be. My guess is right now they're just probably around average. And if that's the case, I know that's probably not up to the par of Tampa Bay. And, of course, we saw what Cowboys were able to do against the Tampa Bay defense. But I love the Chargers here. This is probably my second favorite game of the week in terms of confidence. After the Eagles, I love the Chargers here. I think they could win by 10 to 14 points. And I just think the other thing I've said a lot is I don't have a lot of faith in Mike McCarthy. So giving him extra time, I don't really think that does anything. I don't know if a lot of people have pointed out Dak Prescott's arm. Looks like Peyton Manning in his final season, a little bit of a noodle arm. I think he's just really good at placing the ball. So we'll see if that comes into play here. But potentially opens it up for some turnovers if he's not throwing as hard as normal. Next game on the slate. Tennessee Titans completely embarrassed in week 1 on the road to face the Seattle Seahawks. I think this spread should be significantly higher. And I've said all preseason, I think the Titans are going to be very disappointed this season. Maybe not to that extent, but definitely after week 1, I'm even more convinced that this is going to be maybe a borderline 500 team, if not worse. I think the offense is going to take a significant step back. So when we saw that in week 1, how much of that was the Cardinals defense? We'll see. But I also think the Seahawks defense is almost as competent as the Cardinals defense. And the fact is, the Seattle offense is probably just as good as the Cardinals offense. So given the way how things played out for the Titans in week 1, every bit tells me take the Seahawks. And this is my third favorite confidence game of the week. So I'm smashing the Seahawks -5.5. This is great value. I think if we were to revisit this same matchup in Seattle 4 weeks from now, you're probably looking at 7, 8.5, because I really think the Titans will have fallen that far off. Next game up, of course, on top of that, the Tennessee Titans secondary is trash, and no surprise, nothing has changed, and so Tyler Lockett and Metcalf should be able to feast. Sunday night game. This one, after several games in a row where I felt very confident about the outcome, this one's a tough one because the contrarian in me says take the Ravens +3.5. The last time these teams played last year, I believe the Chiefs routed the Ravens. It was not close. They just threw all over them. And, we saw the Raiders do that more or less last week. I think Derek Carr is now the league's leading passer, and he did that on the Ravens defense. So how do you convince somebody that the Chiefs won't be able to cover 3.5 against the Ravens? And the only thing I can think is that if this turns out to be the case, the Ravens should still be able to run the ball, even with Latavius Murray, which is a tough pill to swallow. But 3.5 at home, Ravens typically really good home team. I think let's check in on the numbers. The Ravens, where are they clocking in at? Let's see. It is, the second team on the slate here. So you're looking at 11% of the money, 18% of the bets backing the Ravens. That's a huge contrarian play. Judging by these numbers, if these were to stay where they are with Jets at 6%, Ravens at 11%, I would probably just smash and take both of them and know that it's almost a lock that one of them is going to cover. On top of that, you've got the money line, which 7% on the Ravens. It's just one of those things that you get those primetime games a week before, the general overreaction of week one, the injuries that have happened to the Ravens. There's a lot of narratives that are driving against the Ravens, and that's driving this money. And I think that brings a lot of value to betting the Ravens. So I'm going to bet the Ravens here. It's going to be challenging because a lot of the logic in my head says that doesn't make any sense. But, a lot of times these games just play out differently because if they were so easily predictable from the week before, everybody would be significantly better at this. But that's not the case, and that's why Vegas always wins. The other thing to consider going into Monday night is I talked to Kyle about this parlay buster theory that I brought up sparingly in the past before, but when you have these heavy favorites like you do this week, and look, we're looking at the Chiefs here, which everybody's going to be betting, especially because it's a Sunday night game. I mean, typically people will bet the Chiefs as favorites, but given the fact that it's only 3.5, they're going to get pretty decent return on a money line if the Chiefs win. You're going to get two easy locks with the Buccaneers and the Browns, right? So you're thinking, I want to parlay the Buccaneers and the Browns. That payout is not going to be a good investment because that money line with that parlay just between the Bucs and the Browns is just, it's nothing. You have to put up a lot of money. I want to say it's probably still minus 600 in that neighborhood. So you're still putting up 600 to just win 100. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, let's just sweeten it up a little bit so I can get a better payout. So it's naturally follows logically that if you feel strongly about the Chiefs and you're looking at this Packers, you feel strongly about the Packers, just throw those two on there. And then you have a 4-game parlay that you feel super confident about every single game, and they seem like natural locks to you. And that's where I think, especially given the fact that you have two easy ones between, in theory, and I'm speaking in the eyes of the public for Sunday night and Monday night, one of these two has to lose. And I speak that as I'm having every confidence that the Buccaneers and the Browns are going to have won. So if you've got the first two legs of your 4-leg parlay, that means more than likely there has to be an upset based off of my parlay buster theory between Sunday night and Monday night. And given the fact that the Ravens are 3.5, and they're at home, that tells me there's pretty decent odds that the Ravens would be that one. But if the Chiefs were to end up winning that game, then you've got the first 3 legs of your 4-leg parlay. What does that mean to me? That means I am definitely taking the Lions plus 10.5. I think we're getting a lot of this feedback like, okay, the Lions were getting completely blown out in week 1. You can run on them. Yet I was very impressed that the Lions came back and were actually able to move the ball offensively. I think a lot of that is credit to their really good offensive line, top 8 unit. You look at the Green Bay Packers, still all these years, unable to stop the run. I think the Lions have 2 very capable running backs, especially, Swift and Jamal Williams. They should be able to run all over the Packers. And I think the fact that running the ball, as I've said many times, will shorten the game. You're getting the hook with the 10. So 10, you could be down 17 points and then get a backdoor with a touchdown. So many factors here. Divisional game. So many factors leading me to believe I love the Lions in this matchup. On top of that, the odds that you're probably going to have one of the Bucs, Browns, Packers not cover a double-digit spread. And of course, that makes a lot of sense. Naturally, one of those underdogs is just going to get through the back door, actually put up a fight. I think the Lions of those 3 teams pose the biggest threat, and I think there's still a lot of love for the Packers. The fact that they came out so flat in week 1 leads me to believe I don't think they can just flip the switch. So obviously this could turn out to be wrong. Wouldn't be the first time, but I'm taking the Lions here. In addition, I'm taking the caveat that if the Browns and the Bucs cover, you're looking at almost a guarantee that one of the Ravens or Lions will win outright, because you have to have that parlay buster relative to my theory. So putting that out there, I would not take the Chiefs or the Packers in your eliminator. Of course, maybe you don't want to listen to me because I already lost week 1. But if you want a low-key eliminator pick, I would go Seahawks. I feel super, super confident about that. Or if you want to feel super safe, Bucks, Browns, easy pick there. And Lions plus 10.5, probably my 4th or 5th highest confidence pick of the week. So looking at Eagles, Seahawks, Chargers, and then probably the Lions on top of that. Probably the least confident game, I would say the Panthers or the Steelers. So those I may end up flipping the Patriots and the Jets purely based off of the betting numbers currently. Like I said, 6% on the Jets. That if that holds, I'm not touching. I'm not picking the Patriots. It's just uncomfortable. So having said all that, please take this into consideration when you're making your picks. I feel very good. 9-7 last week. Looking for 10 or 11 plus wins this week, and then of course we'll roll that over into week 3. Outside of that, if you enjoyed this, please hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, and Kyle and I will be back next week with hopefully both of us sharing our picks. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but we look forward to seeing you bet again, and until next week,